Alright, we've got a hot one which just hit the scientific streets, explaining once again why you 100% cannot overlook your gut when it comes to being a modulator of how fast you biologically age. And I'm not talking about the 20-something feet of intestinal tubing when I say gut. I'm talking about the trillions of non-self organisms which live within it. Yeah, we got another microbiome adventure on the docket, and hopefully one which can slow down your rate of aging too. Let's go. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of Out of Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic way. Now, if you've been around these virtual parts, you know that the trillions of microorganisms living in our gut are constantly interacting with the food and substances we consume, courting them, fermenting them, using them for fuel, and typically releasing some sort of new compound as a byproduct. Oftentimes a metabolite which moseys on through the selectively permeable gut wall and enters the hottest club in biological town, club circulation, aka your body. And this right here is one of the main reasons why your gut microbiome has so much pull when it comes to the function of your cellular self. Because depending on what species of bacteria they are and how they interact with the compounds you consume, the metabolites they produce could be very beneficial, such as the often touted short-chain fatty acids butyrate, acetate, and propionate, which generally have a cellular enhancing and inflammation reducing effect, or the opposite, driving dysfunction, damage, disease, and ultimately accelerated biological aging. So it really behooves us intelligent walking apes to cultivate a healthy, diverse group of beneficial microbes. Something, as you fellow gut geeks know, is the exact opposite of what the modern, ultra-processed, ultra-sedentary, ultra-sleep-deprived, chemical-riddled lifestyle creates. So it's safe to assume that the majority of the population is playing behind in this regard from the get-go. That being said, being in that position is not all gloom and doom either, because these communities of microbes, which call our intestinal tubing home, happen to be extremely responsive to changes in said lifestyle as well. Meaning, getting your shit together and beginning to nourish thyself in all aspects of living can flip your gut microbiome and thus health script into one of vitality rather than dysfunction. And that's pretty effing cool and timely, because as I mentioned, we have another hot off the scientific presses paper highlighting how these microbes presented the wrong variables can age us faster, with information so groundbreaking that it may be a bowel stimulating event. Hopefully not, but I'd stay near the toilet paper just in case. Let's check it out. Here, researchers out of the University of Zurich sought to explore how microbe-derived metabolites, specifically a suspected problematic one called phenylacetic acid, or PAA, may affect the health and function of one of our most important and critical systems, the endothelial cells which form the blood vessel walls of the cardiovascular system. But not only that, how it may actually age them faster, searching for the mechanisms at play, as well as the golden goose in scientific research, a causal link. And to take on this momentous task, they approach these questions in a multifaceted way, the only way you can. First, they performed a human data analysis, analyzing information from over 7,000 healthy individuals spanning the wide age range of 18 to 95, ultimately reasserting that there was, in fact, an age-related association between the accumulation of phenylacetic acid along with its byproduct phenylacetylglutamine in the human population. Okay, so they re-smelt the smoke. But what's next? Then they moved to a mouse model, where they were able to validate the effects of phenylacetic acid on aging and overall cardiovascular health in a living organism, creating the crucial bridge between human observation and mammalian mechanism, with mice being the mammal, though, not humans. Important to be clear there. Okay. So now we see the smoke. However, that doesn't necessarily mean there's a fire or causal link. It could just be a fancy smoke machine in the woods. Who knows? Well, the researchers were eager to find out because they then took this experiment in vitro, where they looked at the effects of phenylacetic acid on endothelial cells outside the body in a petri dish, finding that phenylacetic acid leads to the senescence of endothelial cells, which is characterized by reduced cell proliferation, the secretion of inflammatory molecules, and the proliferation of an overall aging phenotype, a topic we talk all about in this deep dive here. And it did this specifically by driving an increase in mitochondrial hydrogen peroxide production, thus providing direct evidence of phenylacetic acid cellular impact. Whoa, we're seeing some flames. I know. But how do we truly know it isn't just one of those fake flame machines or AI? Exactly. The search for validation must continue. And with this ambitious team, it did. They then performed a comprehensive bioinformatic analysis of the microbiome in both mice and humans to pinpoint the bacteria species which may be responsible for secreting this cardiovascular aging metabolite, identifying one genre in particular called Clostridium, discovering that it was capable of processing an amino acid called phenylalanine, a common amino acid found in food, into phenylacetic acid. Keep that in mind because we're going to come back to it. And I know what you're probably thinking. At this point, there has got to be some sort of trickery going on if there is no fire. And I agree, but we're not there yet. This is how the researchers confirmed, aka attempt to establish the causal link. They then colonized young healthy mice with the identified bacterium Clostridium, allowing them to observe the direct impact of this specific bacterium on phenylacetic acid levels and endothelial senescence, finding that it did in fact increase circulating levels of phenylacetic acid, induce endothelial senescence, and cause angiogenic incompetence, or the impairment of forming new blood vessels, mirroring the signs of vascular aging in naturally aged subjects. Well, call the fire department because this baby's burning. And to really put the nail in this flaming aging coffin, they did two more super creative things. First, they treated the aforementioned colonized mice with a specific antibiotic which targeted Clostridium, to which they observed a reduction in phenylacetic acid circulating the body, providing rather compelling evidence of the gut microbiota's direct involvement in phenylacetic acid production. And second, performed a series of in vitro experiments, adding the short-chain fatty acid sodium acetate to phenylacetic acid damaged cells in culture, showing that it could effectively restore the function of aged endothelial vascular cells and highlighting its potential as a therapeutic agent for vascular rejuvenation. This right here is what you call a thorough experiment, demonstrating the phenomenon in a large human cohort, then replicating it and manipulating it in a whole organism, aka the mouse model, and finally dissecting its precise molecular mechanisms at the cellular level, validating said mechanisms back in a living organism, and validating that there is in fact a causal path of aging between the gut and the oh so critical vascular system. I mean, damn. Well done. Which brings us to the age-old question, how do we know, you and I, if we're potentially at risk here? And if we are, is there anything we should start doing? Let's talk about it. And as I mentioned before, there are reasons to be optimistic, because as all of you in the longevity fam have seen deep dive after deep dive across the Microbiome 101 playlist, this ecosystem living within is highly reactive to the lifestyle we live. And the most impactful modulators are at our disposal. The food you eat, because That's what they eat. The movement you do, the sleep you get, the stress you trigger, the everyday products you use, the pharmaceuticals you take, and the nature you interact with, all swaying your gut bugs and critical gut wall towards being cellular promoting and strong, or, well, the opposite. So that should be the first step for anyone trying to correct the way too common gut dysbiosis driven by modern Western lifestyle norms. And yes, there are cases, for example, severe leaky gut, Crohn's disease, and SIBO, or small intestinal bacteria overgrowth, where engaging a specialist is likely needed. So don't be afraid to go ask for help. That being said, when we look at the bacterium and metabolite honed in on today, Clostridium and phenylacetic acid, we know that they can be promoted from a dietary perspective by eating a heavy animal-based diet, consuming a lot of beef, pork, chicken, turkey, eggs, and dairy products, along with other common food additives such as artificial sweeteners, and, this is the important part, combining this way of eating with a low amount of dietary fiber-rich real whole foods. Foods which naturally promote the species of bacterium that secrete those aforementioned beneficial short-chain fatty acids, like the ones in the study that actually restored vascular function. So being more strategic with your diet, making sure that you're consuming adequate protein from high-quality sources, maybe working in a little more fish here and there, and including a healthy dose of fiber-rich, antioxidant-abundant, phytonutrient-flowing, real whole organic fruits, veggies, and legumes is probably a solid approach. And we also can't forget, although we focused in on the gut microbiome's effect on vascular aging today, there are many more variables at play when it comes to cellular function and thus biological aging. So a holistic, healthy lifestyle approach, locking in on diet, daily exercise, high quality sleep, stress management, chemical mitigation, and more nature is the ultimate way. Remember, healthy habits compound on each other like interest in the longevity bank, and they definitely help your microbes help you. So use that to your advantage already. Oh, and be prepared for a little fiber flatulence. But hey, that may just mean that you're getting biologically younger. Just think of it as farting out the dysfunction, or better yet, farting out the old. Yeah, let's go with that. Good farting.